It didn't work out because you would have hated it. I came across this quote today, and rejection is redirection is like one of my favorite mantras ever. And frankly, I'm a broken record about rejection is redirection. So I want to interpret this particular quote in the context of like dating and relationships more so than just general life failures or academic failures or career failures, because I'm sure I have already or will end up talking about that a lot. But this particular quote, it didn't work out because you would have hated it, I feel like is such a beautiful one to assign to romantic relationships that didn't work out, and even friendships that didn't work out. And frankly, if you're out there listening and you're a young girl and you're still, in that age where you're going through like canon events for our generation, which is like horrifying situationships. And I think just in general, dating in the modern day is just like extremely disappointing if you are a heterosexual girl or just a girl that's attracted to boys, unfortunately. And I feel like I come across this too, where people talk about how their situationships, ending is just so much more devastating than actual relationships, even if they lasted for years, coming to an end. And my understanding of that is just, well, yeah, because when you're in a relationship, you got to see that relationship through. You got to go through the honeymoon phase. You got to be chosen by that person. You got to be desired by that person. You got to be prioritized by that person. Even if they did a poor job of it or whatever, you got to see that relationship through to its natural conclusion before it came to an end. And so even if you don't have perfect closure at the end, the fact that you lived it is kind of the closure you need, because there's not as many questions left for you to wonder about, right? Like, what can you wonder about when you spent several months or weeks or years with a person that you've truly, given it your best shot to date? You already know everything that would have happened. And so if it's coming to an end, there's not as much left to tie up. But with a situationship, it's always ending on a cliffhanger. And that's why you see so many young girls. I just remember like the college experience and seeing my friends around me go through this, even myself personally going through this, where you are attached to someone, but you're not in a real relationship. And they're always maybe like breadcrumbing you or giving you mixed signals or whatever it was. And I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking pretty generally. But yeah, there's so many things that aren't resolved when you're in a situationship, because that person doesn't fully choose you and doesn't fully prioritize you, and you don't actually get to experience what it's like for that person to be your partner. Instead, you're always living in that messy in-between. And part of the reason you keep going back is because there's potential. There's always potential. And actually, your attachment to that potential is what keeps you hooked on this person, despite not seeing anything, truly worthwhile in how they behave day to day, right? Because if there was something really worthwhile there about your connection, it probably would, progress into a genuine relationship. But for whatever reason, that's not happening either on your end or their end. And there's a reason for that. But at the same time, you're in love with the potential of what if we dated? And because you never actually do date, there's so many questions, right? Of what would it look like if we were really partners, and would they prioritize me differently if we were together in some official capacity? Would they change their ways? Or I can just picture us together and I can picture it being so special if only this would happen. But that thing doesn't happen, and frankly, it never does. And if you're in the middle of this kind of love story, spoiler alert, like it doesn't work out. So the sooner you get that through your head and kind of cut your losses, honestly, the better, because the heartbreak hurts more the longer you drag this thing out. But even beyond that, right? I see that all the time, where it takes people years sometimes to get over people that they had even brief situationships with or just brief entanglements with. But the person they dated for months or years that they had a true, proper, genuine romantic connection with, when they break up, it's so much easier to move on. Which brings us back to this quote. You might hear my dog barking because it's New Year's Day and it's 2 a.m. and there's so much fireworks going on in Lagos. But this brings me back to the quote, right? It didn't work out because you would have hated it. Because again, when it comes to these, confusing romantic entanglements, you're in love with the potential of that person, and that's literally the only thing you're hanging on to. And the reason it's potential is because you're not seeing it happen. Because if it was happening, you wouldn't have to imagine it. You wouldn't have to daydream about it. You wouldn't be able to glorify some imaginary image in your head, because if something was actually happening in real life, it would just be memories, right? So when you shift your attention away from this potential that you're obsessed with, this future that you've envisioned and attached yourself to, and you shift your focus to what's actually going on in the present, the fact that you guys are not actually in a committed partnership, the reasons that are driving the fact that you're not in a committed relationship, whatever toxicity is going on, whatever breadcrumbing is going on, whatever gaslighting is going on, whatever, like just toxic attachment styles are going on, whatever clearly red flags this person is just waving in your face that for some reason you're looking past in order to cling to a situationship because they don't even have the respect for you to be in a real relationship. And again, there's a difference between you genuinely not wanting to be with somebody and you guys are just casual. I'm never judging someone for not wanting to be monogamous. But obviously, right, if you are having all of these visions about like a perfect romantic connection with this person, it's because you probably do want that monogamous picture. And the reason why that picture doesn't exist is probably due to the traits of this person that you're ignoring. And that's why you're still attached. So it didn't work out because you would have hated it. Because frankly, even if you did end up with the relationship with that person, it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. It's probably going to look like exactly what it looks like now, except now you have a label that you can flaunt to your friends or show off if you aren't in the having a boyfriend is embarrassing club and you actually think that, being chosen is a worthwhile thing, which frankly is still quite common in the modern day too. I think there are more women that are radicalized, but there are plenty of women that are still absolutely, brainwashed, which is not surprising. But again, it didn't work out because you would have hated it, because you have to face the facts that all of the things that you're experiencing in your entanglement with this person in the present day, you're just going to get more of the same or it's going to go downhill. And that's why they call it the honeymoon period, right? Like the sweetest part of a relationship is the beginning. And if you are having the beginning of this relationship and it's already filled with bullshit to the point where you're cutting it off and coming back and cutting it off and coming back, all because you're attached to the idea of the relationship rather than the reality of the relationship, that means your honeymoon period is already garbage. And if the honeymoon period is garbage, then no level of commitment will turn that garbage into some beautiful experience, right? Because people don't always change. And sometimes the sad thing is, I hate to be rudimentary, but sometimes people do, like men do put women in buckets. That's just the truth of it. You can look up the Madonna whore complex. It's like my favorite phrase. But on a very simple level, yeah, like men put women in buckets. You're either on the pedestal and you're the Madonna and they chase you and they respect you, but at the same time, they don't sexualize you. And so when they step out of their relationships to go and cheat, they go and cheat with the very same women that they call whores, that they demonize. But those are the same women that they sexualize. Those are the same women that they also desire in that physical way. And again, you're seeing that there's two buckets. And if they've already put you in one bucket and then you're trying so hard for them to transfer you into the other bucket and make you the girlfriend, I hate to say it, it's nothing to do with you, but it's everything to do with how that man sees you. And once he sees you a certain way, it's very hard for them to reverse that, unfortunately. And I mean, I've even gotten like frank advice from my dad before, and my dad doesn't really talk that much about relationships and things like that, but he does talk. He did one time say something that stuck out to me, not to the extent of like the Madonna whore complex specifically, but kind of nodding towards that in a sense, where there's kind of like a difference between dating someone and like having a girlfriend versus like really taking someone seriously, if I had to like summarize what he said. Where it's like even someone, like even a guy deciding to date you or to see you regularly or to be with you, or even he gives you the label, right? Because for my dad's generation, I'm sure you would still give the girl the label and you would be going out and going together, whatever they call it back then. That doesn't necessarily mean that like you're the one. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're the wife. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're chosen. Maybe you're chosen for the moment, but that doesn't mean you're the one. And guys will know that very clearly in their own head, but that doesn't mean that they won't pursue you. And if you make yourself available to their attention, if you put yourself out there and say, oh, I want you, I want you, I want you, no guy's going to look at a woman that like really wants him and they're like physically attracted to and then just be like, no, go away. Most of them are just going to take advantage of whatever benefits they can get out of it, while at the same time leaving themselves open to finding whatever it is that they truly want, simply because you've made yourself available to them. So that's how you see, people making TikToks about being in 12-year-long relationships with a man and then having to propose to the guy. And it's like, yeah, the guy might say yes, but it's like, what makes you think that he was in a partnership with you for 12 full years and even had kids with you and still didn't give you the ring? You don't even see the disconnect, right? But he got what he wanted out of the relationship, because at the end of the day, and this is something I really respect about men, they do exactly what serves them the most. They are so much more selfish. They are selfish lovers. They are selfish about their time because they respect their time. They respect, I'm not going to say, men respect themselves more. That's not what I'm going to say. But they are socialized to put themselves and their own experiences above others, meaning even when they're in a relationship, they only put towards that relationship things that also benefit them. And the second that relationship no longer benefits them, you will see them step away, and they don't budge on their boundaries the way that women do. So I even saw TikTok today, and it was like this woman complaining because she'd been dating her boyfriend for a few months, and she was always asking him to get her flowers. Like, I just want a fresh bouquet of flowers. And once or twice he got her origami flowers, but he never bought her a bouquet of flowers. And she made it so clear, like, that's just all I want. And he basically said, well, I don't like flowers. I don't see why I should have to give them to you. And it's like, who cares if you like flowers? I like flowers, right? Like, she likes flowers, but he didn't want to do it simply because it didn't serve him. Didn't make any sense. But even beyond that, they were then supposed to go on some date, and the guy was like, okay, well, can we change it to this because I have to go watch the game at 5 p.m. And she was like, well, can you skip the game for once, and hang out with me? And he was like, I think it's really terrible of you to even ask me to do something like that because you know how important it is to me. And it's like, this is a guy who will give you origami flowers because he's too lazy to go to the grocery store and buy you a freaking $6 bouquet of flowers. Or maybe in this economy, $15 bouquet of flowers that you asked for. But at the same time, you ask him hey, that game you watch literally every single week, can you skip it for once? And he spouts off. But you have to respect the fact that he draws the line and he has a boundary and he respects that boundary. And I feel like a lot of women will give things up in their relationships without even being asked, simply to serve the other person, because that's what we're socialized to do. We're socialized to give unconditional love. Which I have thoughts on unconditional love, but your love should not be unconditional, babe. No. But that's an episode for another day. But anyways, if you're listening to this out there and you are resonating with what I'm saying in terms of the difficulty of dating in the modern day, or if you've ever been in a situationship and that person still pops into your head and makes you feel sad because you didn't have resolved feelings, I don't blame you for that, because the reason why it's taking you a long time to get over it is because you don't have the answers to all the questions. You don't know what it's like to have been in that relationship, so it's much more easy to romanticize what it would have been like to be in that relationship. You didn't get that resolution, and sometimes you have to be okay with saying the disrespect was the closure. You don't need closure. You don't need to call that person. You don't need to see that person. The disrespect was the closure, and you need to be selfish the same way guys are and say, I'm not going to stand for that. If you treat me that way, you've told me everything I need to know, and this is how I have to move forward. And you choosing yourself will lead you to the kind of person that would never treat you that way. And that's what you see all the time. The women who are the strictest, the craziest, the meanest to men always end up with partners that treat them so beautifully because they choose themselves time and time and time again. They always choose themselves, and they don't put up with any nonsense. And so the guy that finally makes it into their life and passes all of the initial criteria is the one that really has what it takes to stick around, because they have filtered the bullshit and they've not budged on their boundaries. But if you are so committed to being the nice, cool girl who's chill and doesn't have a lot of requirements and doesn't expect a lot of a guy and is oh, it's okay, babe, I'm not one of those girls that frets, it's not a big deal. If everything is not a big deal, you are going to be building resentment over and over and over again, because that person, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, they're going to constantly be encroaching on your boundaries. because you keep letting everything slide until one day you've had enough. But it's going to take you so much longer to get there, and it's going to require so much more pain. You may as well get pissed as hell from the beginning and then just end it and give yourself the opportunity to find the person that would never talk to you that way, never treat you that way, never cross your boundaries that way, that would think about you first the way you think about others first. So yeah, it didn't work out because you would have hated it. Remind yourself of that. You would have got more of the same things that finally let you stay away, the same things that make you want to cut them off. That's all you're going to get more of and more of and more of as the initial love and romantic attachment fades, just more of the bullshit. So do you have a relationship that gives you all the answers? No, but their disrespect is an answer, and you should listen very closely to that. But anyways, that's my spiel for tonight. Happy New Year. Happy 2026. Welcome to Live Lumani, Thinking Out Loud. Thank you for spending this time with me. As always, my name is Abby. If you've been enjoying the podcast, whether this is your first episode or you've listened to other ones, I'd love if you'd give it a rating. Share it with a friend that you know needs to hear this, because frankly, if I made this podcast episode when I was like a sophomore in college, I would have needed to send it to like literally everyone I know, because frankly, I was having to give pep talks to every one of my female friends. Well, all my friends are women. To literally all of my friends on a daily basis, I was everyone's therapist. So if this resonated with you, I'm sure you have a friend out there that it would resonate with as well. So definitely send it her way. Sorry, this episode was pretty tilted towards addressing women and heterosexual women, but you know, the shoe fits, wear it. So if you can think of anyone that would benefit from this message, definitely send it their way. Don't forget to follow the Thinking Out Loud podcast and hit that bell button so you get notifications every time I post. Technically, I post weekly, but I get excited. Frankly, I have a backlog of episodes, so I post more frequently than that. So definitely turn on notifications so that any day I post, you'll see it. You can find me at Live Lumani, just LIVELUMANI across all socials, including Substack. That's a recent account I just got that I want to be more focused on in 2026. Also, can I just say something that's like a tiny little pet peeve of mine? Everyone is like, oh yeah, if you want your podcast to grow, make sure it's a video podcast. Guys, what the fuck is a video podcast? The whole purpose of podcasts is that it's audio. I know it's cute or whatever to see the people in their fancy mic setups, but literally the reason why I'm recording these videos instead of being on YouTube and editing and all of that other crap is because, yeah, I like the fact that I'm lying in bed right now with no fucking pants on, looking crazy. I literally look I was electrocuted. I look a mess. That's the whole purpose of this being a podcast. You still get to hear all of this wisdom without the production, because I don't like the production. Sorry. So anyways, I don't know. I guess I'm supposed to make it a video podcast if I want more people to find this, but I don't want to do that because it's a podcast. So I'm being true to the word as much as possible. So it really just is going to have to grow by word of mouth. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with people, because otherwise, I don't know, you can gatekeep it if you want, but we should help the other people out there because that's the only way they're going to find it. I'm not getting dressed. Sorry. Anyways, love you guys so much. This was a long outro. I will see you in the next episode. Bye.